7-Eleven right now, and while the City Council and the Mayor's office continue to crunch the numbers in the final budget, there is some great news for the Department of Education to talk about.
Yeah, $127 million reversal of fortune for schools across the city. Budget cuts they were once facing, now restored. Schools Chancellor David Banks is here this morning to break it all down for us and tell us what it means for the students and the teachers. So good morning to you, Chancellor. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Good morning.
I cannot believe it's already the end of the year.
You can't believe it.
Wow, really. I mean, that flew by. But when you see this $127 million, how is that going to affect summer programs, or will it?
Well, that $127 million is really part of a much larger level of restoration. In fact, we've got about $546 million that the mayor, together with the city council, worked to restore to our schools. We were facing major shortfalls with the stimulus funding running out. And since I've become chancellor, I've been very concerned about that. Lots of great programming, from arts programs to school psychologists and social workers, and so many different community schools were all potentially going to be affected. But the mayor and the council came together in the way that you negotiate that I think has landed this in a great place for schools.
There's a lot of talk now about will that money help with the pre-K and 3K issue. Now, I know the mayor says every child's going to get a seat. I'm sure you're very well aware that parents are saying, I didn't get a seat. So what's going on there?
Well, one of the first things I think is important to note that from the time we made that announcement a few weeks ago, 94% of families got a seat. So, and that's the highest number that we had ever had. So we want to just start from that place. But there are now a little less than 2,000 families that we're still trying to seat, and we feel very confident that we will. The mayor is personally very involved in this process, and we're going to make sure that it happens.
They will get a seat in the district that they live in.
Well, that's a different question, you know, and that's always the issue. You know, if it's sometimes it is in fact a numbers game. If you live in a district and there are 100 seats available and there are 500 people that want a seat, then you can't accommodate that. So we try to find something as close as we possibly can. That's why this is a little complicated. We're working hard at it, but we feel confident that very soon we'll have everybody landed.
Yeah, can you talk about some of the other programs that this new funding will help budget?
Well, one of the major things is that it's going to hold schools harmless. So what that means is that we give most of our funding directly to the schools into their budgets. That's where they hire their teachers. They put in all of the special programs to make their schools special and to thrive. And school principals are always concerned, you know, what is my budget going to look like next year? I don't know who I can hire. Who can I make a commitment to? And so we decided that we were going to hold the schools harmless, which means that even if you lost students, if your enrollment went down, we're not going to lower your school budget. That was a very important message. Again, that's something that the mayor personally got very involved in and made a commitment to the schools of this city to make it happen. So that's one of the biggest things that has happened.
There's a lot of talk about safety, obviously, with a lot of the issues that have been happening with teenagers, right? So parents are saying, well, why can't you hire more school safety officers? Is that under your purview, or is it the NYPD? What budget is that coming out of to hire more school safety agents?
Well, we work together really on that. And so, you know, I was a school safety agent myself many years ago. But school safety agents are technically NYPD. However, they work through the auspices of the New York City Public Schools. We've hired well over 1,000 more officers since we came into office. We believe very much that school safety officers play a major role in keeping schools safe. They do a phenomenal job. We appreciate them greatly. But they're not the sole answers to how you keep schools safe. That's part of the reason why we had launched Project Pivot. We got community-based organizations which help to provide safe passage to and from school. It's the reason why you have social workers. They also help keep kids safe. Teachers keep kids safe. We all have to play a role. Parents have to stay involved, stay engaged. Safety of kids is really everybody's responsibility.
Yeah, because what about crossing guards as well?
That's right.
That's a big concern.
Absolutely. School crossing guards. And these are tough jobs. They don't pay a lot of money, but they're really important to make sure that we're safely crossing our kids to school. That's not a given. And so we salute all of them. And as we close out this school year, it's been a wonderful year. It really has been. In spite of all the challenges that we've had to face, you know, I had to go to Washington, D.C. to testify about anti-Semitism, but we're dealing with issues of Islamophobia. We're dealing with issues of all range of hate. But that's why we have to educate. And I just really want to salute our teachers and our educators across New York City today.
Let's talk about graduation requirements. They could be a-changing, right? Now, I was never a good standardized test taker, so losing a standardized test, I'm in favor of. But let's talk.
You heard it here first.
Let's talk. I mean, there's so many factors that go into a well-rounded student.
That's right.
But a Regents exam, is it being discontinued? How are things changing?
Well, the State Education Commissioner just announced a couple of days ago that we're going to take a really good look at this. And I think I celebrate that. She hasn't made a decision that we're going to move it, but what she is saying is, let's open this up to a community conversation. And so they've made a pledge to have community forums that are going to happen in every borough across the city.
But you're in favor of it.
I'm in favor of it, and not in lowering standards.
Yeah.
You have to have academically rigorous programming, but I think that there are other ways for kids to demonstrate what they know and what they're able to do. And a lot of kids, like Dan said, I wasn't a great test taker. It shouldn't come down to one day,
one
test,
Right.
2 hours. That determines, you know, all of the things that you've learned for an entire year.
Yeah.
I think that there are many other ways for us to look at that. So I salute the commissioner for at least opening this up for a community conversation. We expect to be involved in that conversation.
What about some of the admissions to some of the most competitive high schools in the city? Are those admission requirements also being revised a little bit?
No, right now, I mean, the word is that we're just looking at these state exams. But the singular test, as you know, for a long time has also been controversial. There's been lots of fights around that. Right now, that will remain what it is. But there are lots of other great schools across the city as well, I will tell you, that rival anything that you will see, even with the specialized schools. We have phenomenal schools across New York. So many that I didn't realize even before I became chancellor, but now that I'm chancellor and I'm moving around the city every day, I'm telling you, some of the best schools that you will find anywhere in the world. And we've got to continue to tell those stories and to lift that up.
You know, there's a 7th grader, a civic-minded 7th grader from Brooklyn who
Yes.
has garnered more than 5,000 signatures to fix the New York City school calendar. Have you seen the petition?
I've seen the petition. I've heard all about this. And I salute this young man because, first of all, that's exactly what we want. We want young people who are civically engaged, who are paying attention, and who are activating their voice to try to make a difference. Now, whether or not we're actually going to be able to change the school calendar is another story. That's complicated. That involves the unions. There's lots of negotiations.
Yeah.
We have to do 180 days of school every year. If we don't, we can stand to be fined by the state. So we can't have that happen.
Can we at least bring back the snow days?
Listen, anything is possible. But the goal was this: we went to remote because we have to maintain a certain number of actual teaching days. Well, no, we used to have a buffer of extra days. So if you had an emergency, if you had, you could easily say, okay, we're going to have a snow day. We still can meet the requisite number of days. But because we've given so many school holidays as a result of what folks around the city have said they wanted, Diwali, we gave Diwali.
Yes, of course.
Eid, we have other holidays we've now put in. We don't have that many days left now that we can just say, hey, just take a snow day.
And real quickly, we've run out of time, but how did that testing go on the testing the snow day, remote?
Yes, it went well. You know, you can never fully simulate, you know, close to 1 million people and at home and their parents, but we've been working very closely with our tech partners, and we feel confident about where we are.
All right, Schools Chancellor David Banks, thank you for coming in towards the end of the school year. Appreciate it.
Thank you.